All right, we're back. Sort of Sports Podcast, episode 6. And I think it was on episode 3 where I accidentally put 4 in the title screen. Like, the title of the video was all right. It was just like the title screen of like the beginning of the episode I messed up. So my friend pointed that out and I was like, crap. But, yeah, so for those of you who noticed, you're right. I messed up. Mark it down. Ryan messed up. Um, Today's pretty NFL heavy based off the topics we're looking at, and I guess to be honest, I want to start off with Greg Olson's retirement. Obviously, I'm a big Panthers fan; they're my favorite team. Um, Obviously, I love Patrick Mahomes, but the Panthers are my favorite team, and Greg Olson, in my opinion, is probably the best tight end in franchise history. It's kind of easy to say when he's, is the starter for like it feels like forever. He was the starter for the Panthers. He was there basically his whole career, and he was a really good tight end. I mean, I'm guessing he'll make the Hall of Fame. He's got pretty good stat lines on it, and so, yeah, farewell to you, Greg Olson. You had a great career, and thank you for being on the Carolina Panthers. Now let's get into the first big topic. We're going to start off with the first game from yesterday, and that's the Bucks game. But obviously I wanted to address the fact that I didn't do a podcast last week, wrapping up the first round of the playoffs. And that was because my Wi-Fi went completely down, so I just couldn't make one. So, yes, sorry. I obviously missed 2 weeks. But obviously I was very excited that the Browns won because that was my prediction, and I had that feeling, but I felt like logically they shouldn't win, and so that was insane. And did not I wanted it to happen. I wasn't 100% sure it happened. I was surprised the Ravens beat the Titans, and then I wasn't very surprised when the Bills beat them. But I remember thinking the Bills aren't really looking that good, guys. And that'll of course lead into what we're going to talk about in a few minutes with the Chiefs-Bills game. I got really freaking scared when Chad Henne came in. I was rooting for the Chiefs that game. I wanted them to win because I want them to win the Super Bowl. Partially it's my prediction, partially just because I like Mahomes, and I think he's going to end up being the greatest player of all time. But we're going to talk more about that in the Super Bowl preview. I did not expect the Rams to beat the Seahawks. That was disappointing, but not completely surprising. Not completely surprising. The Bucks Packers game. That's what we're going to talk about now. Also, Taylor Heineke for Washington. Great job, man. Also, XFL alumni. I'm very excited for the XFL to come back next year. I thought it was fun when it lasted, and I'm excited for it to be back. I think the XFL is pretty fun. So, yes, we'll be discussing XFL once it's back next year. All right, so Bucks over Packers. First off, this playoffs has been so good because it feels like every matchup's felt important. Even that first round, they were all good games. Last week was all good looking games. Granted, some of them didn't turn out to be as close as we thought they would, but they were all interesting, at least when they started. And me and my friends went into the games yesterday. We were like, wow, that Bucks Packers game surprised me. That the day game, I was I wasn't completely surprised because Mahomes versus Allen, I think is obviously the younger matchups. There's probably more money to be made there. I don't know. They were both. These are the two best old quarterbacks and then the two best young quarterbacks. That's what it was. It was the young guns fighting it and then the old dogs fighting it out. And so that's why we're going to look at the quarterback splits. Tom Brady, that last night, was 20 for 36, 280 yards, an average of 7.8, so basically 8 yards per pass. 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, only 1 sack. So, quarterback rating was 73.8. He didn't really have an amazing game. To me, the Bucks defense impressed me more than anything else. Watching the game, I was like, man, this is a lot better defense we're seeing from the Bucks. Packers had some pretty good defense most moments, but mostly the Bucks defense was what was impressing me. They were playing really well. They sacked Rodgers, I want to say, how many times? 5 times. Yeah, they sacked Rodgers 5 times. That was crazy. The Bucks defense, definitely going to talk about that when we talk about the Super Bowl preview because they've they're catching fire right at the right moment. The whole Bucks team is. Godwin had some great catches. Godwin to me was the receiver of the game. Gronk had that nice flip play. They tossed it to him when he ran it down, and yeah, the Bucks played really well. I mean, going into this, 51% of me thought Packers, 49% of me thought Bucks. Especially after the Bucks game against the Saints, where the defense played amazingly well. What's going to talk about Breeze more when we talk about the quarterback carousel. But I don't know. I think the Bucks are the one team in the NFC I thought could beat the Packers. They did beat the Packers. It's going to be very interesting to see them in the Super Bowl. Brady, obviously, isn't as good as he used to be, but he's still, obviously top 6. Some people have him top 3 quarterback right now. If I had to rank my top 6 quarterbacks, I would go Mahomes, then Rodgers, then Wilson, Brady, Watson. I think that's what I'd go. It's my top 5. And then the 6th spot would probably be maybe Lamar. I don't know. I don't fully trust Lamar Jackson. Maybe Lamar or yeah, probably Lamar Jackson. He's probably my 6th best, maybe. All right, we're getting off track. Yeah, let's look at. We're gonna move over to what Rodgers had compared to Brady. His quarterback rating was higher, 101.6. Sorry. Obviously the 5 sacks though, only 1 interception, 3 touchdowns. They both had 3 touchdowns. 7.2 average, so about the same. 346 yards, which is obviously almost 100 better. Well, not 100 better. It's like 50 better than Brady. He was 33 for 48. So he obviously passed 12 more times than Brady, but he also had 13 more completions. So, percentage-wise, completion-wise, they're about the same. It was really just the interceptions that lowered Brady. And the one interception, I wouldn't really even count on Brady that much. It was a tip. It was one of those tips. For those of you that watched, I don't remember who exactly it was. It might have been Godwin, maybe, or it might have been Evans. It might have been Mike Evans. He tipped the pass, and because he tipped it, it bounced up everywhere, and so then the Packers guy got to grab it. So that's how they got that interception. I was scrolling through the Bleacher Report community posts after this Packers loss, and my friend Aaron John felt terrible for him because he's a big Packers fan, and I'm going to be honest, guys, if the Packers aren't going to the Super Bowl with this team, I don't think they're going to be able to go to the Super Bowl with Rodgers. This is the best team they've had with Rodgers since 2011. This team's really, this is the best they're probably going to get with Rodgers because he's probably got 4 more years in him, 5 or 6 if you're lucky. It just doesn't look good. It doesn't look good. Obviously, you want him to have a fairy tale ending like Peyton Manning, but it doesn't look good when this was obviously your best all-around team you've had. Maybe it's as good as 2011. It's a heck of a team. You got Devontae Adams. Lazard was stepping up. Aaron Jones is obviously a really good running back, really underrated. The defense is pretty good. I mean, I think they're definitely top 16. They're obviously in the top half of the league. They might be top 10, I'm pretty sure. I'm not 100% sure on the ranking. This is probably the best they're going to get under Rodgers, and they couldn't get it done. So, yikes, if you're a Packers fan. And that, we will talk more about what Rodgers said after the game. And the other thing is, the Packers, they should have went for it on that 4th down. Everybody who watched the game knows it. You had Rodgers, but also on the 3rd down, Rodgers could have ran it in, and he didn't. So, to me, all around, the Packers lost themselves that game. It's the Bucs played better, but it wasn't like the Bucs played this amazing game and just, the Packers played really well and they were just a better team. The Packers didn't play that well, and it makes you wonder what the Packers were even doing. And then the Bucs played just better. So it wasn't like it was the Packers didn't play as well as you thought they should have, and the Bucs played better than you thought they would. So that's how it worked. At least defensively, the Bucs played a lot better than I thought they would. I did not expect Brady to throw 3 interceptions, and we'll talk more about that with Super Bowl preview time. Moving over to Allen versus Mahomes, Patrick Mahomeboy. I also thought it was weird when he came out. Jim Nantz called him, "Here comes Josh," and I was like, Josh? I've never. Like, you don't see Brady come out and they go, "Here comes Tom." Like, I don't know. It felt like a girl introducing her new boyfriend to her family. "Guys, here's Josh." Like, I don't know. It was just funny. I was like, "What are you doing, Jim Nantz?" And, I was making jokes I was watching the game with Quinn, my friend Quinn. He was like, "Yeah, watch them come out and be like, 'Here's Patrick. Here comes Patrick.'" I'm like, "Yeah, it was just weird, the first name." So we'll start off with Allen. He had the worst game. I mean, the worst out of the two of him and Mahomes. He had 28 completions, but 48 attempts, so a little over 50, probably about 60%. 287 yards, 2 touchdowns, an average of 6 yards per throw, 1 interception, 4 sacks. 2 of those were bad sacks. He went way back. And lost a lot of yards, which I'm guessing was make his rating a lot lower, which is why he has an 80.8 QB rating. To put that in perspective, against the Colts, he had 121.6 rating. That game against the Colts, he threw 324 yards with an average of 9.3 per throw. So that just puts into perspective how different this game was against the Colts. And obviously the Chiefs are better than the Colts, but I mean, that Colts defense, I'd say, is probably about as good as the Chiefs defense. So just weird that way. He did rush some, and he got 88 rushing yards. So that was pretty good for him. That was pretty high. We'll move over to Mahomes. Mahomes had 29 completions, 38 attempts, so obviously a lot higher percent, 325 yards, 8.6 average, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, only 1 sack. That's the big difference. 1 sack for Mahomes, and the sacks for Allen were 4, and 2 of those were bad, real bad. And we're going to talk about the flags later, don't worry. Also, quick aside, the Packers-Bucs game said, no flags. So I guess props to them, or maybe the refs. I didn't see too much, or I thought there should be flags in that game. They both played well that way. There was not a lot of slowing down in the game. It was very fun to watch that way. There wasn't a lot of flags. Except the pass interference flag. I can't believe I missed this. I don't think NFL's rigged and they're trying to have Brady win. But I do think that call, to me, it's a holding call, if anything. Because he's grabbing the jersey early on, but I can see it both ways. To me, it's 60-40. 60% of me says it's a flag. So I don't think this is a Saints-Rams situation. That was an awful call. Everybody knows that was the wrong call. But this one, to me, I can see it both ways. So I do think the Bucs won that game. It'd be different. It's different if Rodgers scores the touchdown there and they don't kick the field goal and it's a tied game going into that. I think that call becomes a lot more important. But the fact that they're already up 5, it's not as important then. And I think that's part of the reason. When you're up 31-26, and I know that might sound weird, I'm just saying, I would be more questionable if it was a tied game. And so let's go back to what we were saying with Mahomes. Mahomes had 127.6 rating. I'm not sure if I said that. He only rushed 5 times, but he got 5 yards, so obviously it's an average of 1. That's a much better game than he had against the Browns, obviously, because he didn't play the whole game against the Browns. But to put that into perspective, he only had 70 less yards against the Browns. He threw 255. 8.5 average with an 8.6 average against the Bills. So only a 0.1 yard average. So he's pretty consistent that way. 0 sacks because he didn't play the whole game. Didn't play the whole game makes it sound like he didn't play the entire game. I mean, he didn't play all of the game. Okay, I don't know how to make this sound. He played like half the game. That's the better way to say it. 106.9 rating. 20. That's obviously like about 20 points lower than his QB rating against the Bills. I like QB ratings. I think it's a good way to kind of fully sum up what the quarterback did. I wouldn't just look at quarterback ratings. You obviously want to look at everything, but I do think that is an important part of the game because you can see a guy throw for 300 yards, but, then you look at the rating and you're like, oh, that's low. It's because he took 5 sacks and threw 4 interceptions, and his name's Jameis Winston on the Buccaneers. Yes, I just threw a lot of shade at Jameis Winston on the Buccaneers, but goodness, was that team bad, and so are the jerseys. All right, so the Chiefs-Bills game. It started, and they were up 9-0, and I was like, okay, that extra point might come back to bite him in the butt. And it kind of did, but it kind of didn't, because I wasn't really afraid, and I was like, if the Bills get up 16-0, I might start getting a little worried. But then the Chiefs marched down, scored a touchdown. Then they stopped the Bills. Then the Chiefs came down, scored a touchdown, and I was like, okay. I also noticed that McCole Hardman, of course, had that huge fumble, which would be a way bigger deal, except for the fact that he had that huge he scored the first touchdown. So, great job, McCole Hardman. Watching that Chiefs game, they obviously have the best wide receiving core, by far. Like, Tyreek Hill is obviously a top 3 wide receiver, the other 2 being Stephon Diggs and Devontae Adams. Tyreek Hill is obviously a top 3 wide receiver. Sammy Watkins, a good slot guy, solid, 8 out of 10 type guy. McCole Hardman's like really fast too. He can be he's mostly like slant route slot type guy, but he can go deep sometimes. And then of course Kelsey is by far and away the best tight end in the NFL. He's basically a wide receiver. He's amazing. And like anytime you've got one of, if not in some people's opinion, the best wide receiver, I'd say Diggs is probably the best in my opinion. If you've got one of the best wide receivers, obviously the best tight end, and then, Hardman, Hill, Watkins, wow, they're good. And Pringle's not bad either. He's solid. Like they've just got a heck of a team. And of course, running back wise, they got Williams. It's not Damian Williams. Darrell Williams, and then they got, of course, Le'Veon Bell, who didn't even play yesterday, didn't even take a snap. And lucky for them, Clyde Edwards-Helaire's back, who, in my opinion, is the best running back on that team, and I think most people would agree. He's really good. And obviously, he was on that LSU team from last year. So, of course, I'm going to think he's good because if you were on that LSU team last year, I think you are hot stuff. Because I love that team, and they're very good. And just want to point out all the players drafted in the first round that was on that LSU team have been doing really well. Those guys being Patrick Queen, Justin Jefferson, Joe Burrow, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. All right, now let's talk about the flags. Josh Allen, to me, it just started getting rough at the end of the game. And I don't want to call anybody classless because I don't think the Bills are just jerks or anything. That's not true at all. But I think the Bills, it started to look like it was over, and the team just kind of got peed off by it, and they let their emotion get the best of them. And I think once Allen threw the ball on that sack at Okafor, I thought that was dumb. I don't think you should do that. Okay, that's not really a hot take or anything, saying that you should probably not let the emotions get the best of you. But I'm saying, that was really dumb. You got to be a professional. The game's over. That just looks bad on you and on your team. And then 73, the guy who just absolutely nailed Okafor and he pushed him over, and then he got on top of him and started hitting him, and then 76 is over there pushing another Chiefs guy. I can't remember the names. I'm sorry. That was just rough. It looked bad for the Bills because, the Chiefs got 1 flag. The Bills got 3. It cancels out, which doesn't completely make sense, but at least it was on a 3rd down on a huge sack, so you knew that, it was over for the Bills offensively. Once that happened, it looked really bad. I don't hate the Bills. I don't think Allen's a jerk or anything. They just their emotions got the best of them, but, you're professionals. You got to be professional. You can't always be stuck in the heat of the moment. You got to remove yourself from that moment. You need to be a professional and know, hey, I'm not just trying to always do. I don't want to do what everybody does. Where it's like little kids watch these games, but that's true. Like there's dozens of 8-year-olds off in Buffalo right now who just watched Josh Allen, throw the ball at Okafor, even though he didn't do anything wrong. He just sacked him. So that looks bad. I'm glad. Obviously, they were the losing team. Because of that, I'm saying they were going to lose anyway. But I'm saying it really looked bad if they won. We're doing that, but yeah. Like I know they're the Bills Mafia. They got that fun fan base and everything, but you just got to be professional. I'm not going to hold it against the Bills. I'm not like, oh, they need to lose every game now. They just got the emotions to get the best of them. I'm sure it'll happen to a team I like. It's completely fine. I can move on. I was just saying that was my opinion on it. Just be professional, guys. Also, did you guys know The Weeknd will be performing the Super Bowl halftime show and it's sponsored by Pepsi? Wow. Yeah, I'm obviously being sarcastic. They showed that commercial basically every other commercial break. I think there was one time where I saw the commercial and then we came back and they showed us like a bit of the commercial again. We're like, by the way, in case you didn't, I was just so sick of seeing that commercial, and that they just became a running gag between me and when I was watching it with Quinn, is that every time it'd come on, we'd look at one another, be like, oh my gosh, did you know that The Weeknd's performing? Yeah. So, that was obviously, it's obviously Pepsi wants to promote, and that's fine. It was just, they only have one commercial for it. It's the one where everybody's singing. And like, if you're gonna do a billion commercials, make like at least 3 different ones. But whatever. It was just really kind of annoying, and obviously that's just the way everything is. I'm not going to argue against it. I know why they did it. It was just funny sitting there. I was like, goodness gracious. All right, let's move over to our next topic, the Super Bowl 55 preview. Obviously, this is Brady versus Mahomes. We all know what I think. If you listen to this podcast, you know what I think. Cue the Forrest Gump, you know what I think. I think Mahomes is winning. I think this is the most important game Mahomes has had his whole career so far. I think last Super Bowl was the most important at that point. Now this is the new most important. And not just because Super Bowl, it's because of what it represents. This is like arguably the greatest quarterback matchup in Super Bowl history, depending on how the game turns out. They have saying if one of them just does awful and the other one blows it away, or they both do awful, it probably won't be. But I'm saying on paper, right now, looking at it, this is potentially the greatest quarterback match we've ever seen. We've got a guy who's got a chance to become the greatest player of all time. And then the guy who is, at the moment, most people herald him as, excuse me, the greatest player of all time, and Tom Brady. The battle of, I mean, it's everything you'd want in a Super Bowl. You've got Brady versus Mahomes, and I think this is big for Mahomes' legacy, because if he can't beat Brady and Brady wins his 7th championship, which is insane, I don't think Mahomes can ever be the greatest player of all time. He can maybe be tied. Obviously, there's elements. Like, if he won, 10 rings, it's going to... But I'm saying this is... If he beats Brady, which I think he will, that really pushes him. Because it's like, okay, Brady's heralded as the greatest of all time, and he was about to get his 7th ring and maybe retire off this one. I don't think he will, but, I mean, if you're Brady, why not? Why not win it and retire? And on a big one, but over Mahomes, you're not going to get a bigger Super Bowl when you're Brady. With Mahomes, if you win this and you never win anything else, you're still a big deal. You're a big freaking deal. But I think this is so important to Mahomes to win, because if he wins this, he wins back-to-back Super Bowls. He beats the guy that most people say is the GOAT. And he's now got, in 4 years, and the first year essentially doesn't even count because he played basically a game. He's got 2 Super Bowl rings and 1 MVP. and one runner-up MVP. He was my MVP, but Rodgers is obviously winning it, and congratulations, Aaron Rodgers. Great job. And that's not sarcasm. I'm serious. Great job, Rodgers. You did well. So when you're Mahomes, you got to win this game, and I think he knows that. But like I told my mother, I said, out of every team you watched last night, when you watched the AFC and NFC title, which team played the best football? Which team was the best? And that, to me, that's Chiefs far and away. Brady threw 3 interceptions. His defense is really what won him that game. The Chiefs sacked Allen 4 times. And Mahomes went off. I mean, the 325 yards with 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, only 1 sack. It's a heck of a game. So I think the Chiefs got it. I think it'll be close. Brady will definitely know how to make it close. Bruce Arians, the quarterback whisperer. It's a great coaching matchup. Oh, speaking of ESPN pregame, I don't know. It wasn't the ESPN pregame. It was the pregame for the AFC title. It would be on CBS then. It was like the tail of the tape, and they had head coach, defense, wide receiver, and quarterback. They gave head coach to Chiefs, defense to Chiefs, which are both true, wide receiver to the Bills. I can see the argument that the Bills have the better wide receiver core, but personally, I still think it's the Chiefs. And they gave quarterback to the Bills. I can understand why you gave the wide receiver to the Bills, but you can't try to tell me that Josh Allen is better than Patrick Mahomes. You can't. Maybe last night before the game there was a bit of an argument, but after it, that looks terrible. Terrible. So, as I've said all season, Mahomes is far and away the best quarterback in the NFL. He's going to be the best quarterback of this generation. And I think he's going to end up being the GOAT. But this game is a huge, huge part of becoming that. And I think he's going to win it. And it'll be a heck of a game. So everybody tune in to Super Bowl 55 because it's going to be an absolute hood classic. Absolute hood classic. So I'm going to be rooting Chiefs. You all should be rooting Chiefs because you're seeing the Michael Jordan of football before your eyes. So you're seeing a legend. Mahomes is amazing. And this is exactly the Super Bowl, I think. To me, I wanted Rodgers, Mahomes, or this. Obviously, I prefer Rodgers, Mahomes because it's 2 good guys. But I think this is more of a defining moment for Mahomes' legacy than beating Rodgers. I think Rodgers, Mahomes is like, almost Mahomes isn't the underdog. I think Rodgers is the underdog in that situation because he's older and I don't think his team's as good overall. So Mahomes is the underdog because Brady's considered the greatest of all time. And I think Mahomes is going to take advantage of that and he's going to win the game and it'll be huge. So go Chiefs. I think Mahomes is going to win. If I had to give a score prediction, I'd go 38-30. I think that's about right. Maybe 35-30. One of those. If I really had to guess, I'm going to go 38-30. Chiefs, obviously. So I think Mahomes will win. That'll be huge for his legacy. Let's go Chiefs Nation. Moving over to the quarterback carousel. Everybody on the ride. Everybody's getting new teams. We're going to start off with, obviously, the obvious one. Deshaun Watson. And yes, I realize I've said obviously a lot this podcast. I don't know why. I just been saying it a lot, and I'm going to acknowledge it. Deshaun Watson, I think, to the Jets is a done deal. And I think Eric Bieniemy is going to Houston. I don't know when you're Houston why you don't hire him. He obviously knows what he's doing. He's about to be back-to-back Super Bowl champion. And I think the Chiefs will do fine without him. So, not worried about that. And Joe Brady didn't get hired anywhere, so I'm very happy he's back for the Panthers. But we'll talk about that more on our last NFL topic, which is quarterbacks draft. You know, we look at the draft about every week because I am a huge fan of NBA and NFL draft. I just love talking about it. So, back to what I was saying about Deshaun. I think Deshaun to the Jets is a done deal. I think the 2 pick, a future first, maybe a future second or third. That pretty much seals it. Texans, I think, are going to take Fields. Personally, I believe Wilson has more potential. I think he's probably the better prospect. But Fields under the right guy, and I think Eric Bieniemy is the right guy, and I think he wants to have a mobile QB. He wants to see what he can do with a guy like Fields, who's got a big arm and can move. Because you notice Mahomes has been doing a lot more mobile. Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. One more thing about the Bills-Chiefs. When he does that toss play to Kelsey, poetry. It's so freaking dangerous. My parents were making fun of it, saying that it's a bad idea the first time they did it. And I was like, they do that crap all the time. Then they did it again for another touchdown. It's a great trick play. It worked twice. And just, goodness, guys. Like, that's a heck of a play. If you don't know what I'm talking about, look up Mahomes to Kelsey toss. It's great. The defender's right there, but everybody's going right because that's where everybody's looking. Because Mahomes is moving right, and then he just tosses it to Kelsey, and he dives into the end zone. It's a great play. Props to the Chiefs. Back to what we were saying. Watson to the Jets is a done deal. I don't know why you're Watson. You wouldn't rather go to Miami. And I think when you're the Texans, you probably prefer the Jets deal because you'd rather have Fields and just have your own full quarterback. Maybe. Actually, okay, now that I think about it, the Dolphins deal is better for the Texans and Watson. I don't think it's better for the Dolphins. I think you're better off to just select Devontae Smith like they want to do with the 3 pick. I'm guessing that's what they're going to do. I think Jamar Chase might be better, but they're going to take Devontae Smith because, he's Bama and he was with Tua. And he had that amazing catch to win him the 2017 college football playoff against Georgia. Still the best college football playoff game. They're going to do that with a 3 pick. But when you're the Texans, you'd rather have Tua and the 3 pick. That's a heck of a package. But the Jets, I don't think the Dolphins want to do that. So I think the Jets have the best package between Fields or Wilson, but I think they're taking Fields. And then a future first, a future second or third. And then maybe like a 6 or a 5. You know what I mean? Something else. I think that's good. I don't think Darnold's going there. I think they might keep Darnold as a backup, or they could move him. Maybe like Denver. Los Angeles is an underrated place to pick up a quarterback. I'm telling you, they might be moving away from Goff. To me, L.A., Vegas. I don't know why I said Oakland. They're obviously the Vegas Raiders. Los Angeles, Vegas, Denver, and Washington, and New York, like the Giants. To me, those 5 teams, if they don't make the playoffs next year, I think we'll be drafting new quarterbacks, especially the Rams, especially. But I don't think they're going to go get new ones this year. Maybe Washington, but I think the Giants, the Raiders got to focus on defense. The Giants, the Raiders, and the Bears too. Denver, LA, and Chicago are all on the edge with their quarterbacks. And I think if they don't make the playoffs next year, again, they're just going to move on. Or like maybe Drew Lock has an incredible season and they barely miss, they'll keep him or something. But do think if LA and Chicago and them don't move to the playoff next year, they will move on from Goff, the most consistently inconsistent player. Well, quarterback at least. So Watson to the Jets, I think it's weird because it's not like the Jets have a lot going on. To me, the Jaguars are a better team if you remove like the quarterback situation. I don't think Darnold's awful. I think he could definitely be moved somewhere for some decent pieces. Side note, I completely believe that Najee Harris needs to go to Pittsburgh Steelers. They need to draft Najee Harris from Alabama, the running back, best running back in the class. He's great. He's explosive. He's everything the Steelers need at running back. They need to get him. I mean, they might take a lineman, like an offensive lineman, but I think they should take Harris. It'd be a great pickup for the Steelers. But the quarterback carousel, back to that. Watson to the Jets, I think, is a done deal. I think it'll be really, really weird to see it, but we're going to see Watson and Tua both in the AFC East along with Allen. So I do think Tua is going to be a good quarterback, but he might be third best. He might be the third best in his class, behind Herbert and Burrow. I do think Burrow might end up being the best, but Herbert Herbert's really freaking good. So Herbert and Burrow got a heck of a battle coming up, and I'm so happy Burrow will be back next season. I had my friend Zach Lester tell me he was talking about, he goes, watch the AFC North get 4 playoff teams next year, and I'm like, I don't know if the Bengals will make the playoffs, but I do think they're gonna probably have 6. At least the least amount of wins they'll get is 6. They'll probably get like 8 or 9 wins, to be honest. I don't know if they'll make the playoffs, but the Bengals are up and coming. And obviously the Ravens and the Browns will probably make the playoffs, and the Steelers will probably make the playoffs too. So, um, back to Watson though, to the Jets. It's just kind of weird, and obviously they're going to build around him. But I don't know. You're obviously going to become a playoff contender once you get Deshaun Watson, but it's not like you have a lot going on there. So they got to sign some guys. They got to get some stuff out there in New York, and I'm sure they'll do something. They'll figure something out, but I'm not sure if you'll make the playoffs next year. And then, you'll have to wait another year, and then maybe that's when you start competing. But moving over to the next guy in the quarterback carousel, Carson Wentz. I don't understand why you keep him if you think Hurts is good enough to be the starter. If you think Hurts is too good to be a backup, I think. So you might as well move Wentz. I think if Wentz is moving, he is basically a done deal to Indianapolis or Chicago. Chicago's probably sticking with Trubisky. Now that I think about it more and more, I do think they're sticking with Trubisky another year, which it feels like you say that. I feel like everybody says that, where it's like, oh, one more year of Trubisky, and then he kind of looks good, so they're like, all right. You're never going to win an NFC championship with Trubisky. That's just the reality. People want Watson to go there. I think they would be the NFC champion next year with Watson. But obviously the Jets have the best package for Watson. It makes the most sense for everybody involved. That's probably the done deal. I do think, though, Wentz is probably staying with the Eagles with the new coach, because that might be why they fired Peterson, is because they want to stick with Wentz. But then it doesn't make sense. Why do you still have Hurts? He's good enough to be a starter. So it doesn't really fully make sense in my head. What I think is going to happen is I do think he might be traded to, like, here's the thing. We got to move over to Stafford, because I think Stafford's going to Indianapolis. They want to win now. I think they're getting the move for Stafford. They moved their first round pick. Maybe a couple other things. I'm not sure how that'd work with cap space and everything, but I do think Stafford to Indianapolis is a done deal. They want Wentz, but they're not sure if they can get him because they're not sure what the head coach is going to do. So I think they're getting Stafford. If that happens, I don't know where Wentz goes. Maybe Vegas, but they like Derek Carr, and they have Mariota. So that's so many quarterbacks for Vegas. Doesn't even make sense. So the Eagles are shooting themselves in the foot because they could probably move Wentz to Indianapolis, borderline immediately as soon as they can trade. But Indianapolis is just going to go get Stafford, and so then you're stuck with Wentz and Hurts. So we might see another year of Wentz and Hurts, and then next year, once LA or Denver or Vegas, whoever's sick of their quarterback, gets Wentz. There is a chance, though, that Wentz goes to Washington, and there's also a chance that Stafford goes to New England. But I think the New England Patriots are getting Garoppolo back. I think they're going to get Garoppolo back, and I think that the Niners are going to draft Trey Lance or Zach Wilson, whoever's left. I think if Wilson's there, they'll take him. If Trey Lance is there, they'll take him. But I'm starting to think that the Panthers are going to take Zach Wilson. Maybe I'm talking myself into it because that's what I want. I think the way the draft's going to go down is obviously Lawrence is going to go to the Jags with Urban Meyer. I'm not really surprised he went there. I think I talked about it on the podcast. I thought that was going to happen. Then the Jets are going to obviously have Deshaun Watson, so then the Texans are going to take Fields. No other quarterbacks will be drafted till probably the 8th spot with the Panthers, and I think they will please take him, Zach Wilson. I do think the Bengals are going to either take the Oregon lineman, Penel Sewell. I think it's Penel Sewell, something like that. Not 100% sure. I'm sorry if I'm butchering his name. Uh, or they're going to take Jamar Chase. I think Jamar Chase is a more exciting pick, but they've got some pretty good wide receivers already. So they'll probably take the offensive lineman, which makes sense. They need a really good line out there. They need to get a good line in Cincinnati. But I hope the Panthers take Zach Wilson. And obviously, yes, Bridgewater's on a big contract, but I think you can use him to mentor. I don't think the Saints are going to draft anybody. I think they're going to roll with Winston and /or Hill, which is interesting. About Breeze, I do think Breeze is retiring. Kind of sucks that in his last game, the best pass from the Saints wasn't even from him. It was from Winston. So that's weird. I do feel bad for him that way. I'm not really surprised the Bucs beat him. I had the Bucs beating him once the game started. And before the game. You know what I mean? I had them losing. I said that the Saints felt like fakers, and it seemed like they were. So thank you, Breeze. You were one of the best quarterbacks of the era. Obviously, he's got his ring. I wish he had a fairy tale ending, but between Brady on the Bucs, Rodgers on the Packers, and Mahomes, and it didn't feel like it was happening. At least I never thought so. I know some people that did, but I just didn't think it was going to happen. So I don't know if he's fully retired. Obviously, Phil is. I'll miss you, Phillip Rivers, but I'm not sure what Breeze is doing. I'm guessing he's retiring, though. So both of them had great careers. I do still wish, obviously, Phillip Rivers did get to win a Super Bowl, but he never got it. So that sucks. Back to drafting quarterbacks, though. Niners, Trey Lance, I think, is going there. And I think Gropp to the Patriots is what's happening. I think they want Jimmy Garoppolo. They'll probably keep Newton as backup or something. Yeah, so quarterback carousel, it feels like Stafford is going to the Colts. I think he'll fit well there. Wentz obviously has a chance to go to the Colts too, but I think the new coach is gonna have to decide. If Wentz goes to the Colts, I think Stafford's going to probably Washington, I would like to say. I think that's what makes sense. There's always a chance, by the way, guys, that the Patriots get Mac Jones. I think that would work really nicely. Kyle Trask, I do think is going to have to be a backup somewhere. If I'm the Rams, I'm drafting Kyle Trask with my second-round pick. And I think Trask is probably has the least potential out of the main quarterbacks in the draft. The other ones being, of course, Jones, Lance, Wilson, Fields, and Lawrence. But he's still really good. So, and I think he would work well with the Rams. I think the Rams should pick him up. So, yeah, the Rams should go get him. I think that is the last of what we'll talk about for the NFL. I'm obviously super excited for Super Bowl 55. I'll probably definitely do a podcast after Super Bowl 55, like that Monday. Monday's usually a nice day for me to record podcasts. It's right after NFL. And this is a very NFL-heavy podcast. There's not a lot of other stuff to talk about. Just a little bit of NBA, and I just got a little bit of something about Netflix television shows I'd like to discuss. All right, moving on over to the NBA. James Harden traded to the Brooklyn Nets. We all know I thought Sixers. I saw a tweet. Somebody said, since when did the NBA start playing with two basketballs? And I think that really sums it up. My girlfriend asked me, she's like, well, what do you think about this? And I was like, well, to me, it's a keep-away move. It's one of those where if they take Harden away from somebody else, you prevent another contender from being created. I don't even think they're the best team in the East right now. If they get it figured out how to play together, yes, they probably are. But the way the Warriors worked is Klay Thompson and Steph Curry could both be catch and shoot guys. Curry got to create some, but Kevin Durant mostly had the ball in his hands, and Kevin Durant can be a catch and shoot guy. They could all become catch and shoot guys. Kyrie and Harden are not catch and shooters. They both create. They both create off the dribble. Kevin Durant is the only one of them that can become catch and shoot. But he's probably your best player too. So you're limiting, if you get it all worked out where they all play together well, you are limiting at least one of them, maybe two of them. Because if you decide that Harden's your main guy, well then Kyrie's going to be extremely limited in what he's doing. So they look better when it's just Harden and KD, and people started talking about trading Kyrie. I don't think they will trade Kyrie, but I think in a world in which personalities and in a world where everything's just pencil and paper, like if we're doing this on 2K, I'd trade Kyrie. You can get nice assets, move him off to some place that want him. I'm not sure who. I think maybe you might be able to move him to the Bucks, but it really just depends on how much you like Drew Holiday and, probably like what? Drew Holiday and I don't want to give up Dante DaVincio, but that's probably what it'd have to be. Dante DaVincio, Drew Holiday, and a first. I don't even know if they have any firsts after the Drew trade. I don't even know where you move Kyrie Irving. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think the Sixers really should have went out and got him. I think, to me, that team is deadly. Embiid and Harden. That's like the best duo. That to me versus the Lakers would be so good. Harden and Embiid against LeBron and AD. LeBron and AD are probably still the best duo, but that is so close. That would be so good. So good. I don't even know if they're going to make the finals, guys. They might, but to me, when it comes to playoff time, who do you want to take the last shot? Kyrie's probably your clutchest player based off his playoff resume. But he's probably the one they're going to limit the most. So it doesn't – I don't know. And between Kyrie and the off-court stuff, and I think he's just having problems with his family, so I don't really want to talk too much about that. That's his own business. He has the right to do what he wants, but he also has got to know that he is contracted to play. So they got to figure out what's happening there. But I don't know. I don't think they'll trade Kyrie. If they don't make the finals, they might make a panic move and maybe move him to the Clippers. But I don't even know who you get from the Clippers. Because I don't think you're going to straight up swap Kyrie for George. But maybe that's how it goes. I don't know. I really don't know how that works. But, yeah. Yeah. So, I don't think it's the best move. If they can get it worked out, they'll probably be a contender, but I don't even think it makes them the best team in the East. I think the best team in the East right now, it's really tough. It's like the Bucks, to me, I can't bet against Giannis taking a team to the playoffs and making them good, but the Celtics look good, and obviously the Sixers look good, but I don't fully trust Ben Simmons. I do think they should have moved him for Harden. Lakers, to me, are winning the West. I think that's just a done deal. Not 100% sure on MVP yet. It's starting to look like Embiid and KD and LeBron are your leads. Luka could maybe turn it around, but I don't know. I thought Luka would be playing better than he is. He's not playing terrible. I just think the Mavericks don't have the best record. Just the reality situation. Cavs still playing well. Colin Sexton better win freaking most improved player. My gosh. If the Cavs make the playoffs as an 8 seed or a 7 seed and just win one game and it goes 5, and they get knocked out, I'm happy. This is huge for the Cavs. Keep it going. Keep the momentum. The pickup of Jarrett Allen is incredibly underrated. Now we have a franchise center. Re-sign him. Give him $15 million for 4 years. He's great. He's so solid. Keep him. Let Drummond walk. I don't think they're going to be able to move Love because of his contract. So, if you've got a starting lineup next year of Sexton, Garland, Okoro, Love, Allen, and then whoever you draft off the bench, you're probably going to draft at the 18th pick, maybe 17th pick-ish, 18 to 20th range. That's pretty good. That's a heck of a turnaround from the freaking second worst record in the NBA. Worst in the East last year. So, very happy as a Cavs fan. Kind of worried as a Bucks guy. And a Giannis fan, a little worried, but I trust Giannis, so Just keep going. I also really like Joel Embiid. Like uh, he's probably my favorite center in the NBA. I was gonna say when I was younger, he was one of my favorite centers. I'm like, well, he probably still is now I think about it. So I'd like to see him win MVP, but the Sixers would probably have to be top 2, top 3 seed for that to happen. So maybe, but I mean, the Bucks, the Nets, and the Celtics and the Pacers are all looking good. All right, now Netflix. Here's my thing about Netflix. I recently watched that Outer Banks show. I started Cobra Kai. I really, really like Cobra Kai. I watched all of Outer Banks. Thought that was good. I'm a big Stranger Things fan, but I hate the way Netflix writes their shows. And not like the dialogue or the characters. I'm talking about the structure. Netflix writes their shows like giant movies and cuts them up. I'm going to use the show Outer Banks as an example. As much as I really like that show, it's essentially a movie where you set up your main plot and your characters, and then you just run that. You start each plot, and then those, have bumps in the way and different things that happen throughout that plot. But essentially, your 4 to 5 main plots throughout, like that started, end at the end of the season. And I don't like that. Like, I think a show like The Mandalorian or, like, The Mandalorian, okay, we're going to use The Mandalorian and, like, Breaking Bad as examples. Each episode is different, but it all feeds into the larger narrative. You don't have to have everything just be written like a movie that you cut up. Stranger Things is the same thing. Netflix has this real thing where it makes shows more bingeable when it's essentially just a big 10-hour movie that you chopped up. And I don't like it. I think, it reinforces like the binge culture stuff, and I don't like binging shows. It also makes your shows less accessible. Like, are you more likely to watch a show there once a week, it comes out on Friday, and it's 2 episodes in? Or are you more likely to watch a show that all drops at once, 10 episodes, each one's about an hour long? I think they really ruin the accessibility of their shows that way too. Like, I think the writing struggles because it's like each episode essentially is just like a part of a movie. It all kind of blends together. And then let's move over to the accessibility, where I think more people will watch shows if Netflix just released them once a week. And you can't end every episode on a cliffhanger like they do with Outer Banks if you're releasing it once a week. I think it's just, you can't just play with your audience that way all the time. If you're releasing it once a week, I like the way The Mandalorian does that. It also gives you like a little schedule where, like for example, when The Mandalorian episode 1 comes out of each season, it's like, oh yeah, Mandalorian. By the second episode, people are like, oh yeah, that's back. By the last episode, everybody's freaking watching it. It's like an event. Whereas of Netflix, it's like, okay, here's the new season of Stranger Things, and then within a week, nobody's talking about it, because as soon as it releases, you're already behind everybody else, because everybody else already immediately binged it. Whereas with Mandalorian, everybody can talk about what's going to happen. Like, people are thinking about what they're watching and discussing and predicting, whereas with Netflix, it's just instant. And I've had people say, well, like, that's modern America, like instant results. And I'm like, yeah, it's true. I understand that. I think there's no real downfall to, I think there might be a couple of downfalls, but there's much more pros and cons to releasing things once a week or having like a schedule. I think everything does better, and I know some people wouldn't be happy about it, but I'm just saying, in my opinion, here's the biggest thing. Netflix will never write an amazing sitcom like Seinfeld, Parks and Recreation, The Office, let's go with Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, my favorite show ever. They're never going to write something like that, because sitcoms, like Friends, sitcoms, you create characters that are interesting, and then you just put them in like different situations. Whereas comedy movies, you think of a funny situation, create characters within that, and then you just milk that for every single possible joke. For example, like Billy Madison. You think of a funny situation, you milk that all the way through. You're not going to be able to write a comedy, like a sitcom like Seinfeld, where every episode is its own. And like Seinfeld has overarching stories. Like season 4 is all about, Seinfeld is like one of my favorite shows. I think I've talked about I've talked about it before on the podcast. Seinfeld has this overarching narrative in some seasons. Like season 4 is all about them writing the pilot, and like every episode has its own identity, its own story, and I think that's the best way to write sitcoms. And The Office does that too. Every episode has its own identity. Obviously, they all feed in together, but they've all got their own things going for them. If you got like, for example, we're going to take an episode, The Injury, a really good episode of The Office, where Michael Scott when he grills himself. Imagine if that was cut in half. Imagine like you start the episode, the Michael grilled himself, and all that's going down, and then all of a sudden it just ends, and it's like, okay, well now you gotta watch the next episode. It wouldn't be as good. I don't think as many people would watch it. You'd have less episodes and less stories, and there wouldn't be all these funny moments because essentially take every episode, cut them in half, and now you have the same amount of episodes with half as many stories. So I just think they're not going to write a good sitcom the way they write shows. They can write funny shows. HBO drops all the episodes of Barry at once. Barry is really good, and Barry is really funny, but it's not a traditional sitcom. It's a funny show, but like, I'm just saying, I get a little scared that everything's just going to start written like a giant movie that's cut up, and I think television needs to still be written differently. And I think this Netflix will not be able to write an amazing sitcom unless they take note of this. So I completely understand if you disagree. This is obviously very opinionated, this one especially. This isn't like when I was telling you Mahomes threw for 325 yards. That's a fact. This is just my opinion that Netflix really needs to go away from this system. All right. That is the end of episode number 6 of the Sort of Sports podcast. See you all in the next one. And go Chiefs. Go Mahomes. He's going to win Super Bowl 55.